What's happening, Wargamers? Welcome to another episode of the Dossier, the Marvel Crisis Protocol review show, where we take a look at characters from Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we kind of share some thoughts on the character design, the way the model was built, how it was painted up, and then, of course, where we think that they might fit on the table itself. Remember, these are not comprehensive review shows. These are just meant to give you an overview of the character and kind of start a discussion on what characters can do in the game. There are lots of great discussion points out there. Highly recommend you go check them out. And of course, these shows can't happen without the gracious support of the patrons. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/AegisBrand $1 a month keeps the lights on, keeps the content coming, and allows us to expand out and continue to try out new content as well. So thank you all for everyone who is a patron. And of course, if you just showed up here to hit to like the video, that helps too. Thank you so much for that. So today we are looking at Frank Castle, the Punisher. And this one's an interesting one because he's kind of struggled a little bit in Crisis Protocol. But let's talk about the model first. I've never been a fan of this model, to be honest. I've always found it a little bit too dull, a little bit too basic. I think there's way more creative things that they could have done with the Punisher. I mean, he's got his little tactical duffel bag there instead of a tactical rock holding the gun up. We've seen this pose a million times. Very easy to assemble. I will give credit. The skull is detailed in there, so it's very easy to get that painted in. But otherwise, I mean, it's a very unremarkable model. I don't really have a whole lot to say on it, unfortunately. I think some people have done some creative paint jobs going away from like the all black. Kind of wish I did a little bit in that regard. But yeah, like unfortunately, he's just an unremarkable model in my opinion. I don't think he's terribly creative. I don't think he's awful. I just think he's kind of boring. But yeah, so that is the Punisher model. Just very quick overview there. So, 1 second here. So let's take a look at his card here. So he's got 6 stamina, medium movement. He is a size 2, 3 threat with 3s across the board for his defenses. Very typical for a 3 threat character. That 6 stamina and 5 on the back means he's got 11 total, which it's not bad. I mean, he can take a couple punches, which isn't too bad. And I mean, the difference between 5 and 6 stamina is actually kind of big at times, especially with the way the damage works in this game. So what does he got for attacks? Well, his first attack is a physical hip fire. It is range 3, 4 dice. It is a gainer attack, so happy to see a 4 dice gainer with an automatic rapid fire. This means he does not need to hit a trigger to get that rapid fire. It also means that he can target. He has to target the same character with it, but with 4 dice attacks, I mean, that's not really too much of an issue unless you really, really spike. I think with this particular attack, I would have liked it if it was a range 4 attack. Range 3 feels a little restrictive, in my opinion, on it, especially considering we also got Bucky, who has, that wonderful range 5 4 dice attack. But a little bit more range would have been nice on it to I think, make Punisher just stand out a little bit more. Next up, we got Aim Shot, which is a range 5 7 dice attack for 3 power with a Wild Pierce. In addition, if the attack deals damage, you're going to be applying stun and slow special conditions. This is a great attack. Being able to put on 2 conditions when you have a Wild Pierce on 7 dice, you have a really good shot of getting that damage through to it. Range 5, you're reaching out and touching most of the board. That is 10 inches if I'm not mistaken. And so that's a really big threat range, especially on a 3x3 board. When you have 20 potential inches of threat range there, that's almost 2/3 of the board right there. So it is really, really solid there. So next up, we got No More Second Chances for 0 power. So this is sort of his unique mechanic. He can discard 1 to 3 punishment tokens, which we'll get to. During the next attack made by this character, you add 1 die to the attack roll for each punishment token that was discarded. You can only use it once per turn. So it's a great way of just sort of like building up either his hip fire or making sure that aim shot really gets that damage through. It's solid. It's really good. I can't really complain with it because it's 0, and it's also 0 power to add dice to it, which is really nice. So we have the Spec Ops training for 2 power. This is just a short advance. If you have the power to do it, it's a great way of getting him into position. It does mean that hip fire can be used a little bit more reliably as a result, because you don't have to use that first action to always get into position. Having some sort of like non-action movement in a character is always really good. We got Warzone for 3 power. This is an action, and this always messes me up that it's an action, so it's very important to note that it is an action. Choose an interactive terrain feature size 3 or less within 4 of this character. Enemy characters within 1 of the terrain features suffer 2 damage. The terrain feature is then destroyed and removed from the battlefield. Can only be used once per turn. This is one of those abilities that if it was not an action, probably be way too powerful. But as an action, I feel like it just costs a little bit too much. I think as an action, I think I'd prefer to see it be 2 power. But again, it is 2 unanswered damage onto a character, or if not multiple characters. This can be a great way of softening up a bunch of targets. And remember, it's any terrain feature that is is there a size limit on it? It's size 3 or less. So it is any size 3 or under terrain feature. So this can be like lampposts, dumpsters, garbage cans, cars, bodegas. There's a lot of potential targets for this one. And yeah, it almost punishes people for hanging a little bit too close to cover, which is really great. So if you can find a way to, you know, get this off and just put some unanswered damage onto a whole bunch of characters, really solid. And then we got the Fallen. This is an innate ability. When another allied character is dazed or KO'd by an enemy effect, this character gains a punishment token. You can have a max of 3 at any time. So this goes back to the no more second chances. This is an ability that works really nicely if you have disposable characters like grunts or something like that. I can't remember if it's been FAQ'd to not allow grunts. But anytime a character goes down, you get that punishment token, and it means that you can start dealing out a little bit more damage with your hip fires or your aim shots or anything like that, and just increase your viability a bit more. Besides that, I mean, nothing changes on his injured side aside from his health. So that's the Punisher. So where does he kind of live? Well, for the longest time, he suffered from being the only unaffiliated model in the game, not even with Rogue Agent. So he didn't have any home affiliations, which made it very difficult to justify him in a lot of places because he was basically a splash, and he didn't bring enough as a splash character, I feel, to really make an argument for him over a lot of other 3-threat splashes. He doesn't really have board control. Warzone's an interesting ability, but it's not something you can really rely on. He doesn't put out enough damage with the hip fire and the aim shot, and obviously if you're going tall, you're not going to be getting a lot of punishment tokens. So you kind of always were looking at him maybe in a wider list that had a lot more characters to really benefit from those punishment tokens, or if you just really needed some sort of range support. However, things have changed a little bit. He now has the Defenders affiliation, and it's a little unfortunate. He doesn't really care about the Marvel Knights leadership from Daredevil because he wants to be outside of range 2. I do think there's some interesting play with the Doctor Strange leadership and having a range 3 or range 5 potential to put a hex on characters and choose your damage type. Could be really interesting, but it does make sort of a power-hungry kit a little bit more power-hungry as a result, and he doesn't have great ways of gaining that power back, unfortunately. So where else does he kind of live? Well, I mean, I've played around a little bit with him in the Gunline and Shield. He did okay. I tinkered around with him a bit in Red Skull Cabal, where he was getting an extra power whenever he was damaging a character from an attack. Which was kind of interesting. I don't think he brings a whole lot to the table, unfortunately. And I know for a lot of people, the Punisher is a fan favorite character, and it's just a little unfortunate that this iteration of him, I feel, falls a little bit short. I don't think he really has a lot of homes he really cares about. If you're able to give him some out of sequence movement in addition to a spec ops training, you can get him into better positions. But he doesn't take hits better than anyone else. He doesn't really do damage better than anyone else. He kind of does everything kind of average. And unfortunately, average doesn't always get you where you need to be in the game. So that's kind of where Punisher stands, in my opinion. You can definitely leave your comments below. Let me know if you found a great home for Punisher, because I want to see this guy do a lot better. So let me know in the comments below. Get involved in the discussion, and of course, we will see you next time. Happy wargaming.